The lunchroom buzzed with life, filled with the clattering of trays, bursts of laughter, and the constant shuffle of students moving between tables. The air carried the scent of warm food mingled with the faint aroma of cleaning supplies. Sunlight streamed through the high windows, glinting off the polished floors and catching the highlights of hurried footsteps. Amid the controlled chaos, Mrs. Thompson moved with quiet purpose. Her hands, steady and practiced, wiped down tables, arranged trays, and moved from line to line with the rhythm of someone who had spent years serving hundreds of children every day. Her eyes swept across the room, taking in the familiar sights. Groups of friends clustered together, chattering over their meals, others hurrying to find a seat before the bell. And then, at the far corner, she noticed him. A small boy, no older than 12, sat alone. His posture was slightly hunched, his shoulders tense, and his hands were folded nervously in his lap. He stared at the empty tray in front of him with a mixture of longing and resignation, his gaze repeatedly darting toward the lunch line. Unlike other children who called out for their friends or asked for something, he remained quiet. He did not ask. He did not complain. He simply waited, seemingly resigned to whatever fate the day had brought him. Mrs. Thompson felt a familiar tug at her heart. She had encountered hunger before in her years working at the school, but there was something about this boy that struck her differently. It was not just the emptiness in his stomach, but the weight in his small frame, the quiet patience with which he endured it, and the way he seemed determined not to draw attention to himself. Without hesitation, she made her decision. Moving behind the counter, Mrs. Thompson selected a plate that had been prepared earlier. Carefully, she arranged a sandwich, a small container of fresh fruit, and a carton of milk. Every item was simple, ordinary, but together they formed a meal that could ease the boy's hunger. She double-checked that everything was neatly placed, then slid the tray across the counter toward him. The boy's eyes widened as they met the tray. His lips parted slightly, and a look of disbelief crossed his face. He hesitated for a moment, then reached out, lifting the fork and taking his first bite. A small, hesitant smile appeared, growing slowly into something brighter and more genuine. For a few moments, the lunchroom faded around them. The chatter continued. The laughter echoed. But for Mrs. Thompson and the boy, time seemed to stand still. The boy's shoulders relaxed. His eyes shone with renewed hope, and he ate with care, savoring each bite as if it were the most precious thing he had received all day. Mrs. Thompson allowed herself a small, satisfied smile and turned back to her duties, arranging trays and wiping down tables. She moved quietly, not seeking recognition or attention, but simply finding satisfaction in the knowledge that a small act had made a difference. The boy continued to eat, his confidence slowly returning, his movements less hesitant, his focus more on the food, and less on the empty wallet that had caused so much worry. The cafeteria doors opened suddenly, and the regular rhythm of the room shifted. Superintendent Harris entered, clipboard in hand, walking with measured steps as he observed the students. His eyes scanned the room carefully, taking in the flow of the lunch period, noting the efficiency and order that Mrs. Thompson and her team maintained. And then, his gaze fell on the boy holding the extra plate, his small frame framed by the bustling crowd. He noticed Mrs. Thompson, standing nearby, her posture calm, her face carrying a gentle expression. He paused, studying the scene with quiet admiration. There was no dramatics, no spectacle, just a small act of compassion that spoke volumes. The boy finished his meal slowly, leaving no crumb behind. He took a deep breath and straightened in his seat, a newfound sense of comfort in his posture. Mrs. Thompson returned to her work, yet her eyes kept flicking toward him, ensuring he had everything he needed. Superintendent Harris continued to observe from a short distance, a subtle smile forming as he realized the depth of what he had witnessed. He understood that this was not just about feeding a child. It was about empathy, kindness, and the quiet power of human connection. It was a reminder that the simplest gestures often carry the most profound impact. As the lunch period continued, Mrs. Thompson moved among the tables, arranging trays and attending to the students. She noticed small things, the way some children shared their fruit, the way others offered a smile to a friend, and she allowed herself to feel the quiet pride of being part of a larger, caring environment. But the boy in the corner remained the focal point. Every movement, every bite he took, reminded her that a single act, unnoticed by most, could ripple outward in ways unseen yet deeply felt. Superintendent Harris lingered a moment longer, taking in the scene. He had spent years in education, overseeing policies and managing staff, but moments like this were rare. A simple, unseen act of kindness had touched a student's day in a way that no report or meeting ever could. He recognized that the power of empathy could not be measured in charts or metrics, but only in human hearts. He walked toward the door, but not before allowing himself a quiet reflection on the value of compassion in its purest form. The boy finally stood, finishing the last bite of his meal. He glanced around, his gaze settling briefly on Mrs. Thompson, who offered him a reassuring smile. He walked away from the table with a lighter step than he had entered, a small glow of hope and gratitude radiating from him. His day had been changed, not by a grand gesture or a loud proclamation, but by the quiet decision of someone who saw a need and chose to act. Mrs. Thompson returned fully to her duties, continuing the rhythm of the lunchroom, but with a sense of satisfaction that went far beyond any task list or schedule. The lunchroom carried on, bustling and noisy, yet within a small corner, a profound story had unfolded, a story of empathy, of quiet heroism, of the way a single act could touch a life. Sometimes, it was not the big gestures that changed the world. It was moments like this, small, subtle, and easily overlooked by most, yet monumental in their impact. The boy left the cafeteria with a renewed sense of confidence, a lightness in his step, and gratitude that could not fully be expressed in words. Mrs. Thompson watched him go, her heart quietly full, knowing that in that small, simple act, she had created a moment of hope that would linger far longer than the meal itself. And in the midst of the ordinary chaos of the school day, a reminder shone through. Compassion, even in its smallest form, can transform lives, and the effects of kindness can ripple through hearts and minds in ways that are felt long after the moment has passed.